Logan placed an array of cheeseburgers down onto the plastic tray waiting on the counter. He followed it up with another tray of hot potato wedges freshly bathed in the fast food restaurant's savory sauces, and finally quietly bubbling soda pop. A steady beat in his head kept a rhythm and gave Logan something to think about while he deftly brought the tray to his hungry waiting customers. Order 57, 4 howlers with cheese, 2 with bacon, 1 with no bacon, no mayo, 4 potato tails, 2 Cokes, 1 Diet, and 1 Sprite. His intonation suggested he was asking instead of saying. Is there anything else I can get for you guys? Napkins? Ketchup? He scanned the people sitting at the table, and only then did he notice one person standing out among the other 3. It was a man with a prickly graying mustache, wearing a t-shirt highly saturated with a color not so complementary to the undertones of his skin. That alone didn't prompt a double take from Logan, but the large text on the front said, "Fighting the Lycanthropization of America." Just below was the logo of a gun manufacturer who advertises their effectiveness against werewolves. Is something wrong? The man said after his shirt caught Logan's attention. Not at all. Enjoy your meal. Logan walked back to the counter to assemble another order. He lost the rhythm in his head and he had trouble getting the beat going again. Today was his 31st birthday, and instead of celebrating with his boyfriend, he was covering someone else's shift in exchange for them covering him on the full moon. Thanks to his condition, he missed out on the education that would have secured him a better job, maybe at one of the many medical manufacturing plants in the area. Now he, a werewolf, had to serve meals to people who might shoot him if they ever found out. Logan fell behind the power curve for a few minutes while he tried to focus. The sound of his supervisor slapping his hands together wasn't helping. How much longer on Order 61? It should have been out by now, said a 26-year-old Alex with a pencil tucked behind his ear like some knockoff Gordon Ramsay. Logan has never seen him write anything, and he was pretty sure Alex didn't even have a notepad to write on if he ever needed to. 10 seconds, chef, Logan replied passive-aggressively. He knew the cooks and the other servers would like the comment, even if Alex was unaware he was mocking him. That's what I like to hear. He proudly returned to his office, momentarily satisfied with his stage performance. Meanwhile, the quietly frustrated cashier sighed with relief that she clearly heard the customer's orders. For the rest of the night, Logan ruminated on the customer's shirt. Another reminder to him and anyone else who suffered from lycanthropy that the community and all their platitudes still found room in their collective moral patchwork to dismiss his right to life. He imagined this middle-aged man creating a story on his social media accounts about how proud and funny he thinks he is for offending a werewolf. He imagined the man tuning into the Mika Parisky podcast to drink up all the validation that shill had to offer. Worst of all, Logan hated himself at that moment because the man probably bought the shirt hoping to get this very reaction. Logan might as well have served up his own self-respect for them along with their burgers. He reminded himself when he was finished with his work shift he could go back home and talk to Isaiah. As he thought more, he remembered his other friends who knew he was a werewolf. There was Josh and his husband Emmett. Josh forgave Logan for the time the werewolf mistook him for food and made Josh a werewolf too. That thought gave Logan comfort as he focused and worked on the orders for the last-minute crowd. Freedom was so close he could taste it. Logan thought about running to Isaiah, his arms stretched out and colliding with his boyfriend's larger body. Having this man hold him close and pick him up off his feet as Isaiah was wont to do, lay his head against his warm, sun-kissed shoulder. A set of claps interrupted Logan's daydream as Alex shuffled about. Someone get on ice cream! We have 4 people waiting on their new moons! Isaiah raised his eyebrow when he saw something on the screen. Oh, wow. He sat on the couch watching a YouTube video of a mechanic unscrewing the oil drain plug under the engine of a sedan. The man chuckled at the murky green color of the fluid and agreed with the mechanic that someone poured antifreeze into the wrong filling port. The funny thing I always hear, the mechanic said, the customer has no idea why their engine is overheating because they put coolant in. Guys, gotta read the labels on the fill ports. Engines, they're not cheap. And you still have to get more coolant. Isaiah reflexively glanced where Logan usually sat on the couch before chuckling at himself. The man checked his watch and turned over a stiff envelope in his hands before carefully placing it down on the end table. He bounced his leg and continued watching a mechanic react to car problems. He admired these mechanics for their knowledge. He had to admit he might have made some mistakes if he hadn't been warned against them. He couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease as he glanced at the envelope he was holding, hoping it would make a suitable birthday gift. His phone vibrated. It was a text message from Logan. He asked Isaiah if he was hungry and said he could sneak home some burgers. Isaiah lamented that places were already closing down for the night. There were a few trendy bars close that Logan liked, but Isaiah had no idea if the kitchens were still open. Then again, maybe his boyfriend just felt like being helpful. If it's not too much trouble, yeah, I could go for a burger, Isaiah texted back. He tuned out the video for a moment and thought about how he got into the situation. He was attacked by a werewolf when he was in his 20s. He spent 5 years in a treatment facility where no one got any better. He broke out, used his anger as a tool to keep him focused and exacting as he made his escape. Now his circumstances were much better, but the anger stayed with him like a bad friend. Maybe that's why he liked Logan so much. There was something innocent about him, something Isaiah thought he once had, and lost somewhere along the way. Isaiah's feelings about Logan's lycanthropy were as mixed as they were strong, and as punishing as they were tempting. Isaiah admired his boyfriend's self-regulation while he was shifted. Logan, in his werewolf form, displayed the contrition and remorse that Isaiah was forced to do in the treatment facility. He ruminated on it and accidentally recalled the things the therapy leaders had him say. Apologizing for his lycanthropy, accepting blame for putting himself in the situation where the werewolf attacked him. He stood up and shook his head while his feet carried him from one end of the living room to the other and back. Logan became a werewolf at a very young age of 10 years old, after surviving an attack. And this knowledge made Isaiah wonder if Logan would have been placed in the same treatment facility with adult werewolves had he not been kidnapped. Ethically kidnapped, he thought before quickly realizing how awful that sounded. He made a mental note to find statistics about child illegal species in the treatment facilities. Maybe Isaiah could convince the board of directors that the resort needs a kids' table and treat them like they're at a fun church lock-in. A knock at the door brought Isaiah out of his thoughts. He followed the sound and opened the door, seeing Logan there with a bag of fast food in his hand and a couple of sodas. Logan was still wearing his Burger Wolf hat with a bite mark in the bill. His uniform was black with embroidered decals in orange and magenta. His polo shirt was tucked in and belt neatly fastened and perfectly coordinating with his buffed black work shoes. His outfit complied to the company's official uniform standard, as if to compensate for how his long, wavy auburn hair violated social standards. "Hey, I'm sorry I'm late. It took a while to close up shop, and I forgot my house keys here. The food's a little cold, but I think it reheats well." Isaiah beckoned Logan inside and closed the door before wrapping his arms around the smaller man. "It's fine. It's not your fault, and yeah, I think they reheat pretty well. Now if they can make a way to make buns reheat well, I'll be impressed. One day, and then we'll know the future has arrived." "No, no, I don't want the future. You just arrived. I want right now," Isaiah teased. "Speaking of the present, I have a present for you." "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to. I think you like it." Isaiah walked upstairs to the dining room where a small box with a wide satin bow sat on the table. The flashiness of the container made it stand out against the backdrop of Tupperware that once contained leftovers from a get-together with Isaiah's family. Logan held the box in his hand and caressed the soft ribbon between his thumb and index finger before undoing the knot and letting the bands drift delicately onto the table, holding the box hostage no more. He lifted the lid of the box and saw a tantalizing stem of a glass bottle wrapped up in a couple layers of tissue paper, which Logan gingerly slid down and let fall into the box while he looked at the bottle. Logan tilted his head as he recognized the strange and ancient writing. More magic? Is it working? I don't know. What's it supposed to do? Isaiah realized he was out of order. You said you didn't like cologne, so I got you the opposite. Like an anti-cologne. Huh. Does it make you not smell like anything at all? Even better. A genuine smile from Isaiah made Logan glance over. It does that, and it makes you smell like you. It brings out your natural scent. I helped my boss make it, and I made the label. You write ancient magic? Logan lifted an eyebrow. I figure I might as well try. I bet you could learn to do it too if you wanted, Isaiah offered. Logan tentatively slid the cap off the bottle to reveal the tiny pump sprayer. He gave himself a light spritz on either side of his neck before smelling. In a moment, the aroma of fast food left him completely, and his own subtle, natural odor rushed to fill in the void. This made Logan feel self-conscious and asked if he smelled bad. You smell like you, babe. Isaiah reached out and held Logan close to him, letting his head droop down so his stubbly cheek brushed up against Logan's ear. And that can't be bad. Thank you. Of course. Happy birthday, big guy. Dominic struggled to keep his eyes open while a man he'd never met addressed not only him, but a large crowd of other graduates. The heavy-set man didn't feel like he belonged there. He finished the tests and completed the requirements for his GED, but the speaker seemed to be talking to someone else, someone who his advice would apply to. He couldn't relate to this fitness billionaire with the Instagram model face. It was hard to think about how much to invest in your own 401k when you had to borrow money from your mom to rent a graduation cap and gown. Dominic would have been perfectly happy to receive his GED in the mail. That way he could skip the lecture from someone else's idol while doing his best to avoid touching arms with the people to his left and right. His size made that difficult, and the skinnier folk on either side of him were quietly annoyed that they had to sit in their own chairs off-center to avoid physical contact with Dominic. The man was painfully aware of this and felt his own breathing, the air billowing out of his nostrils and surely disturbing yet more people. He thought, hey man, I didn't put the chairs so close together. I didn't choose to put us all in alphabetical order by name. Hell, I didn't even ask to be here. Dominic leaned forward and looked behind him at the seats reserved for friends and families watching the ceremony. His mom and grandmother were somewhere in there, probably waving like so many other people. It's the tennis ball at the end of your radio antenna. It only works if no one else has one on their car. And finally, the speaker continued, you must accept that not all the hard days are behind you. There will continue to be hard days, just like the hard moments and the hard weeks and months. Never fear, because you have already risen to the occasion at least once. That's the reason you're all here. By now you must know that you can do it again when the hours become long, the resources scarce, and when you must invest your time and energy into the most important venture of all, raising your children in the path of the Lord our God. The speech ended with a long round of applause. Even Dominic clapped his hands. The sooner he was done with this, the sooner he could relax before he had to work. The young man stood up and walked when he was told. It was second nature after all the time he spent in treatment. He climbed up the stairs to the stage, walked from right to left, shaking the dean's hand on the way and seeing one of the teachers at the community college. He recognized her from the program designed to get young people's lives back on track. Dominic was genuinely glad to see her, and walked off the stage holding the same things everyone else got. A ceremonial certificate holder, a single red rose, and a healthy sprig of baby's breath. Dominic got sentimental for a moment as he willed his feet forward. For a moment, he felt like he made progress, but that moment was brief. He only realized it was ever there once it was gone. A part of it thought it seemed patronizing, like his accomplishment didn't warrant all of this. He turned to look at whoever it was that shot it at him. They couldn't have been far. The noise was right in his ear. "Are you happy now?" said a man's voice. Dominic turned and looked suspiciously in the direction he heard the man, only to look around for any sign that someone else saw him. "You don't have to be a jerk," the graduate said under his breath and shook his head. He read the letter in the holder while the ceremony continued and eventually finished. Now he just had to find his family. Kendra LaRosse waited outside after the event and was already looking through the pictures she'd just taken of her son when he was on stage. Dominic's grandma, Eleanor Barber, had her daughter zoom in and smiled when she did. "He looks so cute in a hiney," the woman said about Dominic's hair. In a moment, the graduate approached them. "Hi, Grandma." "Where's your cap and gown?" Eleanor asked incredulously. Dominic's mother didn't give the man a moment. "Put it back on. We have to take the pictures. Why did you even take it off?" "I already returned it." Dominic had to talk louder than he was comfortable. "We want pictures of you with your diploma. Go ask for it back." "Mom, please, I don't want to. We already have pictures of us together in me in my gown," Dominic insisted. "But now," Kendra gestured to the certificate holder with two knife hands. She let her head drop as she looked at her son through the tops of her eyes. "Now you have your GED. Go get your—" "It's not even the actual GED. It's just a letter everyone got." "Why didn't they give you your GED?" Kendra asked accusingly. You asked me like I know. I think they'll mail it to me." "You think that? Go ask them." His mom stood up straight and snapped her finger while pointing at the table where staff were busy processing people's gowns. That's when Eleanor spoke up again. "I don't think they'll know. It's fine. They have your address on file, and you can just call them." She looked to Kendra, who didn't look pleased about her own mother undermining her authority. "Nothing's going to happen to his diploma." The three of them were quiet for a moment before Dominic asked if they could get out of the hot sun and go home. They walked to the car where Kendra's longtime boyfriend stayed. Dominic's mom said she wished he could have come in, but for once the graduate was glad for all the stairs in front of the school and the crowded elevator. Dom even had a little inside laugh thinking about the werewolf resort and the long flights of stairs from the parking lot to the entrance. When they approached the car, the person inside listened to a podcast loud enough to make out the words from the outside. "Jay," Kendra belted out, "are you going to unlock the doors?" Without a word, the man hit the button on the driver's side door. He hit it like he was pounding a nail into it. Cracks and epoxy on the button let everyone know that this wasn't his first time. Dominic suddenly felt the urge to walk the 4 miles home, even though his legs were already hurting. He placed his things in his lap and sat in the back seat with his grandma while his mom hopped up front. As they began driving, Mom asked Dominic to pick a place to go out to eat. The graduate said he wanted to go home, and that he wasn't hungry. "I had a big breakfast," he lied. Kendra suggested a Chinese buffet, and with no other suggestions, that's where they all went. It was a little crowded inside the restaurant. It was a popular one in the area. He waited in a long line for the Mongolian grill, only to have his mom's boyfriend wait behind him, eager to talk to the man about the radio show he was listening to. "Hold on a second, I gotta use the restroom," he said as he walked to it. For a moment he was happy to be in relative privacy, but he knew he couldn't just hang out there. Dom went into a stall and locked the door behind him. He gave himself a few minutes to clear his head and went back into the restaurant to fill his plate like he was accustomed to. You make some room for food? Jay joked. Yeah, that's what I did. Dominic sat down and kept his mouth busy eating. So, they're talking about letting werewolves into the military now, said Jay. Dominic swallowed. I think that's just a rumor. No one's actually suggesting this. Oh, they're suggesting it all right. And there's legislation in the works that says soldiers and Marines will be sharing a barracks with predators. Kendra scoffed and shook her head. What are these people thinking? How are you going to go through basic training, take a shower at the end of the day, and have people transform in the showers? Don't soldiers have enough to deal with? It makes you wonder if they're just Chinese spies, Jay remarked with a grin, as though it was a perfectly clever thing to say where they were. I'd better be quiet, one of them might be listening. Dominic didn't want to address what Jay said and tapped on his plate nervously. You know, Mom, sometimes I think you forget I'm still a werewolf. Oh, this again. Jay butted in while Kendra put her hand on Dominic's hand. Honey, you have to understand, we know you're different. We're not talking about you. Listen, you're already doing so much to better yourself. I'm sure one day you'll kick the habit and get on with life God's way. Mom, I don't think one day, I promise you, you will be healed, his mother said confidently. Dominic almost failed to notice the white envelope his grandma placed on his lap. Words were written in neat, legible penmanship. It read, "Don't show anyone." The werewolf placed the envelope in his pocket, prompting Jay to ask what he was fiddling with. My phone. I was just checking messages. Gotta go into work early. Someone called in sick. Well, don't eat too much here then. Don't want you getting slow while you're putting those hours in. Gotta be grateful they called you. They must like your work. Don't mess that up. I won't, Dominic lied again. Kendra looked around. Do you have to go right now? We just sat down, the woman started. Your grandma wants to see you. And I did. I'm satisfied, said Eleanor. But don't you want to have lunch with him? I can have lunch with you too. It's fine. Let the kid do what he has to do. She gave Dominic a knowing glance and sipped on her hot tea. This wouldn't happen in the union. So you had to pay the union to keep you from picking up extra hours, Jay spat. That's just robbery. That's how they get you. Dominic saw his chance and stood up. He appeared to get another plate of food, leaving the certificate holder and the flowers down where he was seated. He picked up a plate and walked behind a group of people at the buffet, placing the plate back down on another stack once he was lost in the crowd and exited through a side door. His legs hurt, but he still walked a long block before opening his envelope. Inside was a card and a check for $1,000. He had never seen so many zeros on a check, and this one was for him. He brought it to his bank to cash it, but according to their policy, he could only pull out as much cash as was already in his bank account, which was barely anything. Can I create a new checking account with my name only? Dominic asked. If you're trying to cash your check, you're going to run into the same problem as with your current account, the banker said. I can still create another account, right? One with only my name on it, using this money? You also won't be able to access your money from any ATMs. But I can still create a checking account for just myself, right? And eventually the check will clear and then I'll have access? Absolutely. All right, let's do that, please. I'm also in the process of moving. Is it possible I could pick up my debit card here? Yes, sir. We can do that once. If you want, we can give you a call when it arrives here, the banker assured him. Oh, and can I sign up for paperless statements? For sure. I was actually going to ask you that. So I won't get anything in the mail. The banker shook his head. All online. Once Dominic was sure his mom and her boyfriend wouldn't know about the money his grandma gave him, He finished the process and walked to the gas station where he worked. The manager looked up from her phone and then to the clock. "Hey, Dom," she said in a cheery voice. "Are you coming in for your shift?" "Yeah, if you want," Dominic replied. "Oh my gosh, you're a lifesaver. I've been on my feet all day. I gotta have a cigarette." "Yeah, okay, I got this." While the manager made her exit, he poured a Mountain Dew from the fountain and clocked in. Only then did he sigh with relief. The man worked his shift and went home, still carrying the fountain drink, filled up once more before leaving. When he got home, he noticed 3 holes in the wall behind the couch that were not there this morning. His mom wouldn't dream of doing anything like that, especially knowing Dominic helped his mom's boyfriend install the drywall recently. Maybe because he'd bought the materials, he thought he had the right to punch holes into it. According to Jay, he was diagnosed with a condition called episodic discontrol, but Dominic thought it was just a euphemism for having a bad temper. As he walked downstairs to his bedroom, he asked himself if his condition could be considered a form of discontrol. When he shifts on full moons, time gets away from him. His vision blurs, and his body becomes hot and uncomfortable. A whirlwind of impulses takes control of him. Dominic couldn't stop or resist them. And even if he could, there wasn't enough sensory information to make informed choices. The best thing he could do was plan for the full moon every month and make sure he goes to the resort. When he made the first trip up there, he thought it would be a massive chore every time. After a year of going, he realized he had friends there. At least they were closer to friends than anybody else he knew. Suddenly, Dominic heard a loud, obscene, and familiar shout from the floor above him. It sounded like Jay wasn't finished being angry, and as usual, he took his anger out on the only person who cared enough to listen. The werewolf drew a deep breath and let it out slowly, the air hissing against his teeth. God. He closed his eyes and tried to focus. Could you make the moon full tonight? Please let me be wrong about what day it is.